Hello. This video is dedicated to one of the most anticipated experiences in 2023. My apologies for the sound quality. If it's bad, just don't try to put it like on high volume because you'll hear the background noises. I'm using a very old earphone, and also I'm having a script in front of me, so I'm just gonna read off the script. It's not really a script, it's just thoughts, very convoluted, and it's gonna be like 15-minute-ish. So thoughts might not be coherent. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep and mainly adrenaline. Wimbledon has just finished, so I'm not okay. I'm not okay mentally, I'm not okay physically. As you can see, I'm wearing shades because the dark circles are just too much. And I actually have not been okay since Australian Open. I remember writing this line. Yeah, things have not been great, but you know, that's a story for another time. So this is essentially just rant. Disclaimer, certain degrees of spoilers. I personally don't think there's any, but if you're one of those people who really love to go to the cinema knowing nothing beforehand, probably save this for later. Probably don't have to save it for later. This video is not important enough. But yeah, I was thinking of the latest Nolan's movies, and I know Dunkirk and Oppenheimer are the 2 movies I can at least do some background research and know what's going to happen in the movie, which I've done. Yeah, I've done my homework. Well, I think that's why it's so polarizing for Dunkirk. A lot of people going in and expected the story to unfold in a different way, and it's possible that's where they're left disappointed. On the other hand, you hear stories of veterans leaving the theaters in tears because of the beautiful way the story translates their experiences and how close the movie is to the historical accuracy. I know this can sound pretentious, it's probably is already too much, but in that you have to be some sort of pretentious prick to be able to enjoy Nolan's movie, and I'm gonna argue that's not the case. So Nolan knows how to make the movies accessible, such as Interstellar and Inception, without compromising his brilliant original screenplay. I'm gonna add The Prestige, Batman as his adapted screenplay. He has this marvelous, incredible ability to convey those stories with such convoluted concepts and theories that most of the time we are way out of our depths. He lays them out to us in such an unassuming way we rise up to understand. Sounds really like a fangirl letter, but stick with me. And I think he talks about this as a skill to be, to be able to be ahead of the audience, but not just 1 or 2 steps ahead, not too far away. Once in a while, Nolan, however, would show his ambition to tell the stories in such a personal and Nolan-style directing that I think he knows probably that there's going to be criticism coming at him in terms of this, such as maybe he wants to do too much too fast, and I wonder it would be the case for Oppenheimer. I have read reviews about the last 45 minutes of the movies where I think it could fall into this, this criticism circle. I don't know. Leave it for tomorrow. So, on a personal level, to me, watching Nolan's movies is always like it's like playing catch games. When you're about to grasp it, there's another story, another plot, and another layer for you to unfold, which I love. I don't want to get to a story from the get-go. At the same time, I don't want to watch the whole movie being clueless and unimpressed at the end. So a movie that makes me feel this way, which I never bothered to revisit, is Assassin's Creed. And you know what? I just googled and the academic ratings are shocking, like shockingly low. Actually, I don't really care about critics, to be honest, so I went to Google reviews because all the honest reviews are there, right? And I read a few, which to my surprise, there are a lot of defenders of the movie adaptation, who basically just straight up tell us off that we have to play the game itself to get the plot before watching. And that's the thing about movies that, that are adapted and based on something else, like a book or a game or historical events. It's very tricky, right? And I think with Nolan, we see, in the case of The Prestige, we see the public reception is generally very positive. But with Dunkirk, based on, you know, historical events, the reviews are more mixed. I think it also has to do with the genre. I personally am a fan of war movies. Such a sucker for it. Funny story, when I make acquaintance, I try to do small talk. We talk about what our favorite genre of the movies are, and I try to say war movies, and I always, like 99.9% of the time, struggle pronouncing it. I'm still struggling at the moment, as you can see, and I develop a little bit of complex, like super conscious about my pronunciation, wondering if it's correct or not, but now it's out there. War movies, right? I hope I would never have to worry about this again. So I like Charlie Wilson's war. You know, it's not really a war movie, it's a bit political, but I still like it, so I still count it as one. Or like, you know, 1917, All Quiet on the Western Front, so on and so forth. There's also a lot of documentaries I love, and I watch more documentaries than commercial movies, I think, because of the nature of my major. We watch a lot of movies about wars, the victims, the masterminds behind them, etc, etc. So yeah, going back to Oppenheimer, I did as much background research on Oppenheimer as you can possibly imagine. I read the book American Prometheus. That's a big effing one, because his script is largely based on that. I freaking love the book. It was 25 years in the making, I learned from the latest interviews. The language is amazing, and it just makes me want to keep reading until and I tried to finish it in a week, and I did. Before that, I learned about Oppenheimer in school and university, but mainly in a tangent way in my nuclear class. Story time. So that's not exactly a nuclear class. My unit coordinator is working in the field. She supports the proliferation of nuclear energy, and apparently she's an influential figure. She would often show us papers regarding that. It's not a required material, but I still read them because it's so coincidental that in the same semester that I attended her class, I took another class about gender where I also learned a lot about nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, everything nuclear. They are related to the concept of masculinity, gender, and so on, right? So when I mentioned that my insight is tangent to Oppenheimer, it's because I remember we watched a part of Dr. Love Strange in our class. I finished it at home. So Dr. Love Strange is rumored to be based on Edward Teller, father of the H-bomb, who has become sort of rivalry with Oppenheimer. So what's the other things that I did prior to watching? I also learned about IMAX and Nolan's relationship with IMAX, something that's very well established a very long time ago, but I only learned more about it after Tenet. Oppenheimer is the first of its kind to have black and white IMAX. Like, it's never been invented before. No one's ever done that, but Nolan and crew actually went and made a request with Kodak about it. And you know what? They say, let us look into that. And thank God they did, because they finally successfully made this beautiful kind of movie. I am talking as if I've seen it. But I truly believe that Nolan's intention to show the color contrast, you know, between black and white frames and color frames are important, and it kind of brings me back to Memento, which was one of the first movies that I remember. Nolan's dedication to the craft really raises the bar for everything and everyone around him, and you got to respect him for that, honestly. This is more cringe as I read it. Very fun girl behavior, but come on. I've also watched every possible press junkets that are out. You see the progression of the staff retelling the story again and again. And but they are very, very professional. They stay interested. I've watched every reaction, every essay videos on YouTube that come out until the day before seeing the movie. Tomorrow, 9 p.m. I booked the latest slot because I want to watch like true movie experience, you know, going at night, having dinner first, you know, that kind of thing. I haven't watched YouTube for a long time, and only until last month that I got back to it, and mainly to watch Nolan and Oppenheimer related stuff. Without spoilers, the script is dense with a lot of conversations and there are a lot of characters, which I think everyone already knew since last year. I mean, I saw the cast list and I was like, you know, is there anyone who is not in it? Generally, I am a fan of play-like script, like Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, which is one of my favorites for a while. But I don't expect that with Nolan, whose scripts usually focus on the mechanisms of things and events and places and humans. So I guess according to a lot of people, based on that, makes his characters sometimes like the emotional depths, and thus lead to movies that are a little bit flawed in a sense. That's not my opinion, by the way, but it's something very worth noting. Apparently with Oppenheimer, this is improved. I think that's kind of expected given that the script is developed from the book. The movie will feature two important women in his life, Kitty Oppenheimer, his wife, and Jean Tadlock, his former lover, which by the way would include intimate scenes that I've read that they are creative and in the only way Nolan would know how. Another thing that improved, I heard, is the music, not the scores. The scores are always top of the games and critically acclaimed as they should be. And by the way, I read nothing but praise for Ludwig's score in this, and there's already an Oscar buzz for that. I actually went online and accidentally I think I listened to the leaked version of it. I want to talk about the music in the sense that it can overpower the conversations. Something that are very noticeable in his last movie, Tenet. I've watched Tenet 3 times in the movie theaters, I think 2 times at home, at least, different theaters throughout. And all of them are in Vietnam. So during lockdown and border restrictions, I think the first one was when I watched in the National Cinema Center, which the nearest to my house. Another story time. So it had been one of the most anticipated movies of 2020 for me, right? Tenet. I had work that day, so as soon as I got off work, I went straight to the theater to secure the tickets, which were actually very much available, by the way, because not everyone has the mobility access. But I want to get the seat front and center, so I was really ambitious, really kiasu in that sense. After I got the tickets, which will be like 2 hours away, I went back home, took a quick shower, get ready for my movie experience. And it did not disappoint. The theater was among the better 2 in my opinion, and of the whole 3 in terms of the music, the score. The second time, oh my god, what the F. So I was really into this movie and I was on a trip to see my friend in a different city. So the friend hadn't seen it yet and I wanted to show the masterpiece, right? That is Tenet. I won't tell you, but it was a big franchise cinema in Vietnam. And the quality is like, you're in your room but you have to suffer the misfortune of hearing your neighbors doing it with a horse, okay? It was horse poop. Horrible, terrible, and the thing we expect with Nolan is he makes his movies accessible, script-wise or sound-wise. So I'm glad to hear the review that he's improved on it with Oppenheimer. And I'm going to watch it on IMAX 70mm, like the way Nolan intended. So I don't think I will suffer the Tenet curse again. I'm a fan of Chris Nolan. If you can't already tell, he's basically my uncle at this point. I grew up watching his movies and materials, and that's where a huge chunk of my movies knowledge is from. And Killian, need I say more? My friends all knew about a weird period of my obsession with over him and Thomas Shelby when Peaky Blinders just came out. But seriously, I watched almost all of his works and other materials as well. Huge respect for the man and much anticipation for his performance. I tell you all this to say that my expectations are sky high and I'm ready to be blown away, excuse the pun. I think everyone has made it at this point, but yeah. By the movie and the cinematography and the screenplay and the score and the cast, amazing actings and everything in between. Just essentially being seated to enjoy the Oppenheimer IMAX 70mm to the best of my abilities. My roommate is... I've thought a lot about whether I should take notes and focus on each and every aspect of the movies, but I've decided that I will not do that. I want to sit back, relax and enjoy the movie, and I will do an out of the theater reaction afterwards, which I will highlight everything that stand out to me in this movie and or things that don't stick. Just a reaction. There will be no review until I watch like a couple times later, I guess, because that's what I always do with Chris Nolan. I don't know if I've covered everything I want to talk about Oppenheimer. Look, I have spent an entire year hyping up to this movie, so I don't think I ever will cover enough of what I want to, but it's as far as I go for now. So yeah, in Nolan we trust.